can you beat the entirety of Geometry Dash without jumping? It's a game where the gameplay revolves entirely around jumping, but maybe, just maybe, there is a way to do it. Let's give the first level of the game a shot. No, you cannot. It's impossible to beat Geometry Dash without jumping legitimately. Back you stuff, video's over, bye bye. Okay, jokes aside, how many jumps does it take to beat all of the official levels in Geometry Dash? I've seen similar videos about other games, so I wanted to give it a shot for Geometry Dash, and the journey I went on is honestly quite incredible. You'll think there's not much to do because every level is structured in a specific way, but many jumps can be skipped with precise timings, and the hitboxes can be abused to make seemingly impossible jumps possible. Before I go onto each level specifically, I want to touch on how I managed to do all of this. I wanted absolute perfection, and that means potentially frame perfect inputs for 1.5 minutes at a time for 21 levels. How can I possibly be sure that the route I take is the optimal route? Luckily, the game has a practice mode where you can place checkpoints and respawn from the most recent checkpoint after death. This helps, but it's still not reliable enough for perfection, and for that I used a third-party program called MegaHack V7 by Absolute. There are a few cheats that help me with this challenge. Firstly, it allows me to show the hitboxes for every object as well as the player, which helps with timing your jumps perfectly. In addition to showing hitboxes, I can show the predicted trajectory of the player, which helps tremendously. With the trajectory, I can quite easily see if a jump is possible. The third tool I used is the frame stepper. It allows me to move a frame back and forward, and thus allowing for frame perfect inputs easily. And to complete this package, there is also a macro recorder and player, which allows for recording inputs with any tools in practice mode, and then playing it in real time in one clean attempt. Without these tools, this project would have been impossible. There's a link in the description to the showcase of all of the levels, so if you're interested in seeing how any of the levels play in full, please check it out. Now on to the specifics of this challenge. Most game modes don't even add any jumps to the jump counter you see at the end of the level, which would lead to those parts being meaningless for the challenge. So instead, I'll be counting the amount of clicks. This makes the challenge more interesting in other ways too. For example, trying to skip clicking on jump rings and holding down for multiple jumps in a row to skip clicking again. All of my records are on 240 Hz and FPS. If you're unaware, the frame rate of your game will change the physics slightly, and thus will make some skips impossible or possible on different frame rates. I chose 240 for two reasons. It's the native hertz of my monitor, and as far as I know, Robtop, the developer of the game, is making the physics act like the physics currently do at 240 FPS in the update 2.2, which may or may not have come out already when I finish this video. This should keep all of my records the same, unless some minor changes were made to the levels in the new update. This will also potentially make me the new world record holder of 7 levels where I was unable to tie the current world record due to using a different frame rate. Some world records on YouTube that I found were done on old versions of the levels, which makes them obsolete, and those I will ignore for world records in this video. To make sure my records would hold up, I copied all of the official levels myself and added a click counter. Some videos also started holding before the actual attempt, which doesn't add a click to the counter, but I myself considered a click, so for those I added a click to the total, as I could do the same to save a click in the beginning for those levels. Now with all of that out of the way, let's get into the first level of the game to see what the challenge has in store for us. Stereo Madness introduces us to the initial 2 game modes that the game launched with, the square and the ship. With the square game mode, you can jump on the ground. You can also keep holding down to keep jumping immediately after you land for as long as you keep holding down. For now, these parts are very straightforward and you mostly start the clicks as late as possible. The same story goes for the ship parts too. There are a lot of videos on YouTube showing the least clicks possible, so I spent most of the time just making the Macrobot do silly things. With 22 clicks, we tie the world record. Unless you count this 21 click record that changes frame rate during the level. Back on track is mostly the same as Stereo Madness. We're really close to saving a jump at 24%. Right after we have a nice hold until 30% with some tight timings. Nothing too noteworthy for back on track otherwise. We finished back on track with 31 clicks, tying the world record. Our total is now at 53 clicks. At this point in my research, I found a video by Cobb with the same premise as this video, and I almost scrapped the idea, but then I noticed I was already 4 clicks ahead and thought to myself, I think I can outdo Cobb, and gave it a shot after some contemplation. Feel free to give it a shot too and break my records. Good luck. Anyway, let's get back on track. Back on Polargeist. Like most of the early levels, it doesn't have much interesting to offer. We have this cool little section at 79%, but that's about it. Polargeist takes 61 clicks on 240 FPS, which is 1 behind the world record. Our total is now at 114 clicks. Tryout is very uninteresting as well. The coin at 30% saves some clicks, but otherwise there's nothing interesting. Tryout ends up taking 40 clicks, bringing our total to 154 clicks. This is yet another tied world record. For the rest of the video, if I don't mention the world record, it means my record is tied with the world record. Moving on to base after base. You can almost save a click at 14% holding here into the jump ring. Unfortunately, you won't have enough height to get over the spikes. At 20%, we barely land on the edge of the spikes to save a click. Sick jumps like this will be much more prevalent later. Also, we get the coin right after this jump. For some reason, the routes for the so-called secret coins often require fewer clicks than the main route. Base after base is the first of 5 levels where we're able to get all 3 coins. Base after base ends up taking 39 clicks. Total is now 193. Next is Cant Let Go, and it is the worst level for 240 FPS. We end up missing on 3 saves you can do on different frame rates. Anyway, we do have this very precise click from 37% to 42%, and we can also skip this yellow jump pad, which is cool I guess. 65 clicks, total 258. Now on to Jumper. On Jumper, we get to abuse the hitboxes when we're upside down. For some reason, RobTop decided to give you quite a generous coyote time when you're upside down, which will lead to countless skips on unintended routes. We can see this already at 16%. We finished Jumper with 61 clicks, which is actually a new world record by 1 click. Our total is now at 319. For Time Machine, we can keep holding at 11% and get the coin too while we're at it. Other than that, we have a couple places where we can almost save a click, like at 26% and 63%. We do, however, save a click over the world record at 91% by jumping over this block with a frame perfect click. With this, we get to 67 clicks, which is another new world record by a single click. 386 clicks in total now. Cycles introduces a new game mode, the Circle. Each click is always 1 and only 1 jump, so there is almost no way to skip clicks in these parts. So we will do very silly clicks and land on the edges of these structures instead. We can skip 1 click on the ship part at 55% by doing precise movements, and at 88% we can just roll across this to save 4 clicks. At 83%, we unfortunately have to do 2 extra clicks over the world record because on 240 FPS you can't land on the top structure. That's all for cycles. We finished with 73 clicks, bringing our total to 459. The 10th level, xStep, is the first time this challenge gets really interesting. The ship part at 41% is unlike any we've seen thus far. We've been able to just hold as long as possible and click as late as possible to get through everything, but this part has lots of blue pads that will change your gravity. These were intended to be obstacles, but we can use them to our advantage to save clicks. Even after a lot of testing, I'm unsure if I have the best possible route. I doubt you can save another click, but I can't say for certain. The circle part near the end was quite sloppy, and we were able to save 5 clicks on it. At 82% you can roll across, and you can do it again right after. To finish off the section, at 90% you can fall off the platform into the ship part and finish xStep with 78 clicks, bringing our total to 537. In Clutterfunk, knowing how you can minimize or maximize jumping arcs with the jump orbs comes handy. At 10% we have these orbs that will save us 1 click if we set the last orb perfectly. The mini square part at 40% is very cool, there's a lot of holding possible, and we have this super epic legendary corner jump at 21%. Yeah, it just looks cool, that's it. The ship part at 29% was hard to optimize, and I wasn't able to find any way to skip a click by holding into the circle portal at 36%. Holding would make you jump once you hit the ground and save a click, but from my testing it was just not possible. At 48% we can save a click by clicking the yellow orb very late. At 78% I was thinking maybe we could skip a click by threading the needle and getting straight in between these 2 blocks, and after a lot of testing I finally saved the click. Oh, well, never mind. Clutterfunk finishes at 97 clicks, with total being 634. Theory of everything brings a lot to the table in terms of skipping. At 46%, we can once again just roll off a platform to save 2 clicks, and right after we can save another 2 clicks by clicking this pink orb late. To finish this combo, we're just a few pixels away from being able to skip a click into the ship part. Well, I guess that's a way to save it. The biggest skip is still ahead though. At 87%, we can simply jump in between these saws and skip the rest of the level, finishing Theory of Everything with 80 clicks, 2 behind world record. Our total is now at 714. Electroman Adventures is another level that spoils us with its coins. The first coin at 12% can be gotten by just holding, and it saves 2 clicks. At 45%, we can do a neat frame perfect click, starting from the blue orb leading us to the UFO portal. At 85%, we have a super cool click that barely lands us on the block and saves us a click. And right after, we have another coin that saves 2 clicks. We finish with 93 clicks, with a total being 807 now. Next, we have the first official demon level, Clubstep. The beginning is very interesting and we can abuse the orbs to skip a lot. And I mean a lot, as you can see. The trend continues on the square part at 34%. We can jump on the spike or skip it completely to save clicks, and right after we can skip a blue jump pad, and then with a frame perfect click we can skip the yellow orb too. I tried to save 2 clicks at 44%, but unfortunately after lots of testing it was impossible on 240 FPS at least. At 60% we have a very cool skip by using the orb store advantage once again. And right before the ship part we can skip more by min-maxing the orbs. On this mini-ship section at 78%, I tried everything to save a click, but unfortunately there just doesn't seem to be a way to skip a click. It is extremely close though. At 90% we have a very interesting interaction. By holding through the square portal, we're able to buffer the yellow orb and thus skip a click. Clubstep is the first level that takes over 100 clicks at 109, which brings our total to 916. For Electrodynamix, the first 18% is super interesting, so I'll let you watch all of it in full. In the beginning, we have frame perfect inputs to save clicks, and then we do a tight jump onto the yellow jump pad that leads us to this short orb section, where we're gonna abuse the hitboxes and jump on the spikes to save a click. At 25%, we save a click by jumping late in the build-up section and skipping the pink orb. We end up with 82 clicks, which is the exact same as the world record you can find on YouTube, but that record basically voids a click by holding before an attempt starts. I could have done the same and end up with 1 click fewer, but to me it feels cheap, so I consider my record to be the new world record. We're at 998 clicks now. The next level, Hexagon Force, introduces the dual game mode, where you can control 2 players at the same time, and with it comes some very bizarre interactions that we will be abusing to the fullest. At 8%, we can almost save a click by jumping next to the spike, but unfortunately that jump leads into death. In the square part, at 48%, we can do some insane skips, and I'll let you just watch this unfold. Some corner jumps chained one after another leads to many saved clicks. We also need to skip the slow speed portal for the UFO section right after to save clicks, and then we start abusing the duel. We have to hit the ship portal with both circles gravity being normal for this skip to work, then we go under the portal to stay as a mini ship. Then we finish off the ship part and nothing? Wrong. We can barely jump in between these saws to skip over 20% of the level. Unfortunately, the skip needed an extra click to work on 240 FPS from my testing, so we finished with 74 clicks, 1 click over the world record. Hexagon Force brings our total clicks to over 1000 at 1072. The very first click in blast processing is quite literally 1 frame away from jumping over both of these saws, and surprisingly this click at 5% is actually frame perfect because you'll die on this spike otherwise. We also have this cool click starting at 10% into the wave portal, which is a new game mode. Now wave is quite boring for this challenge, because more than any other game mode, it's all about just holding on the last frame before you die and starting to hold just before you die. Later on, at 52%, we can get the coin with a precise click. Other than that, there's nothing interesting in blast processing, and we finished with 92 clicks, getting our total to 1164. Now on the theory of everything 2. The second official demon. In the first square part, we can skip some orbs by doing this spike jump, and we can also save a click in the section leading in the ship part by min-maxing the orbs. We skip the speed portal at 16% to give faster speed in the UFO to save clicks. There's an older copyable version out there where you can save clicks at 22%. This level, along with Stereo Madness, were the first levels I completed, and I had to redo Theory of Everything 2 later with my own copy of the current version of the level. Another very cool save that was in the older version that I found was at this part at 28%, jumping on the spikes once again. Anyway, we can barely save a click by doing this insane trick at 74%, and after the tight ship part we can do this crazy looking skip that unfortunately doesn't save any clicks, but it looks cool. We finished Theory of Everything 2 with 114 clicks, which is a new world record by 2 clicks, and I'm really proud of this one. All of these self-proclaimed world records I found on YouTube with fewer clicks were all on an old version of the level. Our total is now at 1278. Editor here. I found out that the world record is actually 111, and there was one skip I had missed, so it's 113 clicks and 1277 total. For the rest of the video, the total is one lower than I say, because I don't want to do another voiceover for single words. It just sounds weird. The beginning of Geometrical Dominator introduces us to yet another game mode, the robot. It's similar to the square, but you can do a longer jump by holding. This also means you can't jump multiple times with a single click. All I can do is just make the jumps look extremely silly. We have one skip at 10%, but that's about it for the beginning. Another new feature in this update was moving objects, which will make the rest of the challenge much more annoying, because the trajectory tool cannot predict the movement. This results in me just having to test every frame for certain parts. At 44%, we can skip the yellow orb by doing a long jump. In the infamous memory part at 68%, we can do 2 cool holds that save us many clicks. I also found this silly little thing at 78% that doesn't save any clicks but looks funny. The only other noteworthy thing in this level is being able to skip the slow speed portal at 84% to save a couple of clicks. Geometrical Dominator takes 94 clicks, bringing our total to 1372. On to Deadlocked, which is very interesting. In the beginning of the level, we have a very short mini wave part. This combined with the awful hitboxes these like dead things have, allows you to go inside the structures and skip these portals. It didn't save any clicks however, and I brushed it off until I found a video on YouTube by Watch Piggy. They managed to skip the square portal but hit the big portal, which allows you to save many clicks. I tried this with many different frame rates and I was unable to recreate it whatsoever, so eventually I just went through the portal. At 5% we can click late and land on the platform, saving 2 clicks at least. However, going into the wave part at 12%, we're already 10 clicks behind Watch Piggy. At 25% we can skip the green orb completely to save a click. We can do a neat click at 45%, skipping lots of jumps. At 53% onward until the ship part, we can do 3 simple skips to save clicks. At 88% there is a skip on a different frame rate, put on 240 FPS, it's simply impossible. The following UFO part was annoying to perfect because of the moving blocks, but I doubt there is a way to save a click. We end up with 140 clicks. Now, Watch Piggy's record is 115 clicks, which is a lot lower, but it also used an exploit at 42%, which makes using a jump orb outside its hitbox possible. The lowest clicks I could find otherwise was 147, so either watch peak is 115 is the world record, or I have the world record by 7 clicks, depending on how one decides the rules, because there are no official rules. Our total is now at 1512 before the very last level. Unfortunately, Fingerdash will not be the final boss we deserve. There's nothing interesting until 45%, where I stumbled upon a very interesting discovery. Abusing the instant movement of the new game mode, the spider, you can teleport inside blocks. Unfortunately, this ended up being useless in Fingerdash, but maybe in a future level it could lead into some insane skips. At 65% we can do the silly robot bug that sends us flying. It doesn't save a click, but it sure looks cool. The only interesting skip in Fingerdash is at 85%, where you can skip the mini portal to save 2 clicks. We finished Fingerdash with 103 clicks, one behind the world record. Our final score to beat Geometrical in the fewest clicks possible is 1615 clicks. And that concludes my little journey into this challenge. There's a link in the description for the full levels if you want to check them out. I might revisit this challenge later in 2.2 with the new levels, but don't count on it. Thank you for watching the entire video, it means a lot to me. I have a Discord server you can join at discord.gg/Jeyzor. That and other social media you can find in the link in the description below. I also added super thanks and memberships on YouTube, so you can give my videos super thanks or become a member to support me. Thank you to my 3 early members, SHMW, Pyro Burnham and Not Marco. In the future, I will be listing all of my members at the end of each video, so consider becoming a member. Subscribe, like the video and share with your friends to support me. Once again, thank you for watching, I'll see you guys later. Bye bye.